So we've got a lovely, nice sunny day again in Finland, but it's quite windy, so there could be a bit of camera noise. I'm off to the beach as well, so I'll just say a few things now. So this one could be called Truth or Fail. Or another way of looking at it actually is, you know how some of these kind of truthers, they actually give themselves the title of researcher. And what I'm going to talk about today is just some of the kind of idiotic mistakes that some of these people make. So the first thing to ask somebody who claims to be a researcher is like, well, what is it you're researching and what sources have you used? And are your sources reliable sources? Have you got more than one source that backs up the point that you're trying to claim? Because it would be a terrible mistake just to make some sort of massive judgment about something based on one source lifted from the internet. And what I've noticed with a lot of these researchers is their sources are extremely unreliable and they exercise zero, and I mean zero, powers of critical thinking to assess the validity of their source. They just use it. And quite often it's utter garbage. So that's some bold claims there, and what I'm going to do is just back it up with a couple of examples. So the first one relates to a YouTube channel that I was watching on Saturday. In this video, they had the host of the podcast, and they had this geezer on. I can't remember the name of the bloke. He's been on this channel a couple of times, on this one that I was watching a couple of times before. And he described, he called himself an expert on the occult. So is this guy, or was this guy, an expert on the occult, or is it just something that he's claiming? Because people never big themselves up, do they, and make false claims about themselves, especially people who are kind of egomaniacs, who are just going for as many clicks as possible on Gulag Tube by propagating fear porn. So I start watching this podcast, and this geezer is probably about 5 minutes in. He starts going on about the book of Revelation being in the Old Testament. So it's like, seriously, you are putting yourself forward as an expert on something, and you're just saying something that's not just like a little mistake. It's not like it's about as basic as you can get, really. You know, if you're going to quote something from a book, the Bible, you better know something about it. You know that the book of Revelation is, everyone should know that it's the last book in the Bible for community. And what is extremely worrying is that people absorb all of this kind of garbage, misinformation, stupidity, without any critical thinking themselves. And this is extremely worrying, really. We're not going to get anywhere unless people exercise a little bit of discernment and check sources out for themselves and start to think critically. And this guy's not the only one. There's loads of them out there, you know, doing podcasts and stuff, who kind of offer very, very strong opinions on the Bible. And you can tell from what they say, you know, like the book of Revelations and Old Testament documents. And you can tell these people, they've never even glanced at the Bible themselves and tried to read it. Can they read? I'm not sure. For 30 seconds. But that doesn't stop them from expressing very, very strong statements about a book that they've never even glanced at, let alone read. You know, and basically what they do, or this is what I've noticed, is their default setting is they'll go with somebody else's opinion. You know, quite often David Icke, you know, so they'll go on about vibration and frequency, and it's like, what are you talking about? Do you even know what are you talking about? It's just phrases. It's just like parrot that they blindly parrot. You know, what does that even mean? What do you mean by that? What is the significance of it? So in the case of the Bible, the kind of David Icke thing is, oh, well, the Bible, it's like social control, and it's, You know, it's like all in allegory, and it's written in code. And have they ever read it? Have they even glanced at it? It's a position that's just based on total ignorance and parroting somebody else's opinion who's kind of like got a higher ranking in the truther community. So it's like, well, David Icke said it, King David said it, so it must be true. Like, screw doing your own research. Let's just parrot somebody else's half-baked opinion. In all probability, somebody else who's never read the Bible. So in other words, they're basing their opinions on a very, very important book that they're expressing opinions on, based on second-hand opinions, which are themselves based on total ignorance, because the originator of the opinion probably never even has glanced at the Bible either. Right, so how can I make this really simple? How about this statement? It's pretty stupid to have strong opinions about a book that you have never, ever even read. So here's another one that you often hear. In fact, the kind of host of this podcast often says this. You know, it says, oh, the Bible, it's all in allegory, it's all in code. Right, well, let's have a look at just one book from the Bible. This is the Gospel of Matthew, right? And these are the words of Jesus Christ. Not everybody who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. And that's Matthew chapter 7, verse 21. So is that code? I don't think so. I think that's a pretty strict instruction, or maybe even a command from Jesus Christ, is that, you know, you don't get away with anything in this life, and you can claim to be a Christian. You can say, you know, forgive me of my sins or whatever. I accept the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, etc. But unless you actually back that up with something and actually begin to live a better life yourself, then according to Jesus, I'm not talking about Saul of Sardes here, I'm talking about Jesus. It's pretty clear to me. You've got to do the will of your Father, of our Father in heaven, which is God, basically. So we're talking here about the Ten Commandments. So just taking one, thou shalt not steal. Is that allegory? Or is that a pretty clear instruction? Have a think about it. Amend your lives, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. So that's Matthew chapter 4, verse 17. So again, is that allegory? Is that, you know, some code to be deciphered? Is there any hidden meanings in that, or is that pretty clear? For me, personally, I think that's pretty clear instruction, that your Jesus Christ has instructed us to amend our lives, to live better lives. Don't murder people, don't steal. The other 10 commandments, live better lives. That's what we're commanded to do, which is no different from what Mark Passio has been trying to get at with natural law. The solution to the situation we're in now is that we as individuals have got to enact personal change to our own lives and become better people. Don't murder, don't try to deceive people, don't steal other people's stuff. It's not hard to understand. Harder for us to do this because we're fallen, but we're expected to try and to, as our lives progress, learn to become better people, aiming for the narrow gate rather than the broad gate. Amend your lives. Begin to treat other people like you would like to be treated. Now, does that sound like a social control mechanism? It doesn't to me. What it sounds like to me is objective morality, God-given objective morality. If we were all to treat other people like we would like to be treated, the world would be a lot better place. Here's another one. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Right, so these aren't the words of Saul of Tarsus, of Paul. These are the words of Matthew. Well, they're not the words of Matthew, actually. They're the words of Jesus Christ as recorded by Matthew chapter 5, verse 16. So again, is that an allegory? Is that code? I don't think so. I think that's some pretty clear instructions from Jesus Christ that we are expected to live good lives. Just talking a good game and calling on the shed blood of Jesus Christ. Lord, Lord, not everyone who calls out my name will enter the kingdom of heaven. So my belief here is that we don't get away with anything in our lives. And we must at least try to learn as our lives unfold, not to keep on making the same mistakes over and over and over again. And if we do something wrong, to repent from it. And how we repent genuinely is by not doing that same error again, that same bad thing more than once. Now, the other thing as well is that probably the people that most need to listen to what I'm saying, they've probably switched off the video anyway, because they're experts on the Bible. They've never even glanced at it. But as soon as somebody starts quoting from the Bible, guess what they do? Switch off, don't they? They get triggered. Now you might, as I said before, you might ask yourself, why is that? And I think that there's some demonic possession here. People who can't bear to hear the word of God as recorded in the Bible, they're demonically possessed. These people, we need to pray for these people because it triggers them so badly. And what they want to do is just remain, they want to keep on spouting off their nonsense research on the Bible that's based on not reading the Bible, that's just been based on watching some David Icke videos or this archaic guy or whatever. It's just kind of nonsense. I heard somebody else actually going on about Tony Blair and how he converted into Judaism, which is just like, again, not very good research, guys. Tony Blair converted and became a Catholic, not a Jew. So again, if you're going to make a statement like that and you get it so badly wrong, you know what? You're going to lose your power to make people listen to you. People are not going to listen to you if you make some stupid errors like that. Oh, Tony Blair converted to Judaism. That's just beyond moronic, because it would take literally 30 seconds to check that. There was interviews where he talked about his conversion to Catholicism. Something else that's been driving me absolutely crazy from these kind of researchers is this belief, and I hear it a lot, that that Adolf, the tiny German moustache man, it was his regime, they were just misunderstood, right? And in World War II, they actually were the good guys, yeah. The National Socialists, the German National Socialists, they were just misunderstood. Now, some questions for these kind of idiotic researchers who've clearly done zero research. What about some of these quotes here, right? All of these are from the tiny German moustache man, lifted from his book. The one, Mein Kampf. So he says, all who are not part of a good race are chaff. So does that sound like a good guy or a bad guy? It doesn't really sound too much different from Noval Harari, does it? He wants to control who can breed and who can't. But oh no, the tiny German moustache man, he's the good guy. What a load of rubbish. Here's another one from his book. It is necessary for Germany to occupy itself with not merely with the breeding of dogs and cats, but also with the same for the purity of their own blood. that sound reasonable to you? Does that sound like what a good guy would say? Or does that sound quite similar to Klaus Schwab? Does that sound quite similar to Aldous Huxley and selective breeding of humanity? Total state control over every aspect of private life, including who can marry and who can have children. You know, for those people who kind of like claim that the German National Socialists were the good guys, my response to them is, you can stick your National Socialist Police State where the sun don't shine. Because in actual fact, you are no different from Klaus Schwab and Harari, because you both want the same thing. They both want an authoritarian police state, and you can count me out. And I have very few rules on my channel, but you start spouting crap like that off, and there's zero tolerance towards it, because I find it deeply objectionable. And if you want to say those things, you can do, but you can do it on your own channel. Because the other thing as well that we have to understand here is that some of the people doing this, making these comments, that either podcasters or people actually writing comments on other people's channels, you know, there are some people who are just stupid. Like there's this one kind of researcher, he's just thick. But then there are other people who are lazy, right? So somebody else has said it, they listen to the podcast, right? So it's like, oh, it must be true then because this guy said it, you know, and these other people, like, they think he's a good guy. It's like, do your own research, go to the primary documents. Yeah, but then there's other people who are either, there's one in particular, he did a podcast like last week, I think it was, where he was like, yeah, he actually interviewed somebody, and they were going on about how, you know, the Adolf really was a good guy after all. I could not believe it. Just complete ignorance. Now, for me, what I think in this case is that's 77th Brigade. It's basically, this guy is controlled opposition, and he's leading you off the edge of the cliff, right? And it's the old guilt by association. So in the future, it's like, well, you know, you went along with this guy who expressed these opinions. You know, you clicked like, you wrote some comments in support of it. It's stupid. So you can write whatever you want on your channel, but you're not going to write crap on my channel and discredit it by association. So some more specifics then. So, you know, for these people that kind of deny that things happened, right? So how about Action T4? You know, the good guys in World War II, you know, your good guys, they basically went around doing what Matt Dazzlamming people back in the 1930s, people that were deemed to be surplus to requirements. So my question to the idiot truthers, yeah, who believe all of this crap is, does that sound like the good guys to you? Killing off disabled people, sick people, gypsies, does that sound like a good thing to you? Or does that sound as if the people doing that were bad guys? Next off, we got the 1935 Nuremberg laws. So that's basically it was legislation that forbid Germans from marrying non-Aryan blood, basically. So my question to the people that think that the Nazis were the good guys is that a conspiracy theory? Plenty of documentary evidence that shows the existence of the Nuremberg laws, right? And then the second question is, the Nuremberg laws, does that sound like a good thing? Is that like what the good guys would do? Pass Nuremberg style laws that controls, where the state controls who's allowed to have children and with whom? Think about it. Fast forward to 1938, Kristallnacht. Tons of pictures, thousands of pictures. Following that, many Jews left Germany. because I knew the writing was on the wall, right? So these pictures, right, for the people that say, you know, Adolf was the good guy, does that sound like a good thing to you? Like smashing up people, you know, small businesses, smashing up people's, it sounds quite like lockdown to me. So, and then the other thing is, like, are you seriously trying to say to me that all of these photographs on the internet, and in books of Kristallnacht, are all faked? Klaus and Co, they believe in censorship, don't they? So back in the 1930s, they didn't have the internet, but they had books, right? So the good guys engage in book burning, you know, and also there'll be some people, I guess. Is there anyone out there, seriously, who believes that the Nazis didn't burn books that they disapproved of? And that, again, thousands and thousands of images of Nazi book burning, it never took place. Prior to World War II, in all of the major European cities, there were sizable Jewish populations. By the end of World War II, those Jewish areas of cities, like say in Vienna, Berlin, Budapest, gone, wiped out. Yeah. So you know, for the truthers who say, well, you know, it never happened, right? So what you're suggesting is the alternative. Where did these people go to? Was there alien abduction or something? You know, the other thing as well is that there are, initially, Jews were moved into ghettos. So again, we've got pictures of the Jewish ghettos set up by the Nazis. So again, are people trying to say that this never happened? Or are they saying that this is a good thing? It's just unbelievable. Another one, like say, so for these people, you know, good guys, they have like an Einsack group, and you know, a group of soldiers who go around shooting undesirables. So, or do they believe that that never happened? You know, the mobile gas vans, the subsequent gassing of Jews in Auschwitz. The figure of 6 million. So are people like, you know, because there are some maybe slightly brighter people, and then what they'd start to do is, like, they say, well, you know, oh, the Holocaust, it's not as it's described, because rather than 6 million Jews dying, only 599,900 Jews died. You know, or they'll start to quibble over the ways in which the Nazis murdered on an industrial scale, you know, like how many of them actually were shot versus how many of them were gassed. You know, for me, this is it's missing the point, isn't it? You know, and what happens is that there are some stupid people who then take these debates and then they extrapolate forward and falsely believe that the Holocaust never happened. I think I've said this on another video. Like when I actually lived on the kibbutz in Israel, I remember I was like, how old was I? Like 22, something like that, 22, 23. I actually saw an old lady with the tattoo on the wrist that the Nazis had given her. You know, so, and then there's, you know, thousands of people who have recorded, you know, their ancestors actually being murdered in concentration camps. So for me, this again, I think it's not a stretch to say that this is a satanic deception. Basically, the people who believe that the Jews are responsible for all of the world's problems and that the Holocaust never happened, these people are demonically possessed. Either that or they're 77th Brigade operatives, and what they're doing is deliberately trying to lead people off a cliff so that they end up getting done by the old trick of guilt by association. So for me personally, yeah, the Holocaust happened completely, yeah. People, again, for me, people who put forward National Socialist Germany as like some, oh, they were the good guys. These people really should be in favour of Klaus Schwab's fourth industrial right, because what Schwab and Harari actually want, you know, you can include Jill Bates in that, you know, with the selective breeding and all. It's no different from what the tiny German moustache man wanted. It's basically a fascist technocracy. So the state decides what's going to be produced, you know, electric cars or diesel cars or whatever. They decide on production methods. It's all happening now. And then they decide the final question of the economic problem, which groups in society are going to consume, you know, people on rubber boats or you. And it's all done at the moment through a combination of taxation, government spending and regulation. No different from what the tiny German moustache man did. He also randomly allocated resources, from moving them from one group of people to another group of people, you know, using his kind of like mad take on social justice. Jews undeserving, Aryans deserving, use the power of the state to make society fairer. It's no different from what these guys like Sir Keir Starlin is actually advocating for. Complete state power over you and how you live your life and what you're allowed to do. It's also collectivist as well. The Nazis were collectivist. You're expected to sacrifice your own personal goals and dreams and ambitions, and instead your job was just to do whatever the state told you to do. And if they asked you to make the ultimate sacrifice for the greater collective good, well, that was what you had to do. Same thing's happening now with all of these. Like, your life's worthless, off you go to the... So the final thing today, that's very, very, very worrying is, again, this is to do with, you know, Satan having... He's allowed to test people out, see what the reactions are. What worries me is that, you know, is there a chance? I think there is, of a backlash, truthers kind of taking over society. Maybe Nigel Farage becomes Prime Minister, and you know, at some point in the future they say, well, it's the Jews that are the problem, or some other group, Christians are the problem. And we have the same thing again. We have like bloodlust, and we have the state committing acts of mass genocide. It's only the government that ever does it. And basically this is Satan's game, isn't it? Divide and rule. And this is what upsets me about some of these truthers, is that, you know, they either say it themselves or they invite people onto their shows and they just basically say that, you know, that Jews are responsible for it all. It's ridiculous. And it's so dangerous because it's demonizing a group of people. And we've again, I think the problem is that many of these kind of self-styled truthers, they've done no reading, they're completely ignorant of history. But that's why they blame Jews for everything. And it's just very, very concerning. So all we can do, I guess, is speak the truth. And that's what I've been trying to do today. So God bless.